Hello everyone. Salam Malaysia Madani. Salam Sabah Maju Jaya. Salam JPN Sabah. Sepakat Sabah Hebat. A very good evening I bid to all. Welcome, welcome to our second Magic, Making Learning Great, Impactful and Creative SPM series. First and foremost, we offer thanks and gratitude to God that we have been graced with the chance to gather in this beneficial webinar today. Before we move on, let us begin with the recitation of dua.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya Allah, Ya Rahim. Praise be to God, the Lord of the worlds. Peace and blessings be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions, and for those who followed his example till the judgment day. Allahumma ya Allah, on this blessed day, in conjunction with the Magic Learning SPM series Speak on Point, we beseech thee and grateful towards you in favor of all the infinite blessings to us, your humble servant, to live in safe and prosperous life. We seek your blessing for a flawless progress of this event from the beginning till the end. We seek your guidance to steer clear of events that would detrimental the progress of this event. Ya Latif, Ya Rahman, please bless us with your tawfiq and hidayah. Please guide us to greatness, peace, glory and prosperity in this world and the hereafter. Make us a responsible intellectual, granted us with a valuable knowledge that will be beneficial to mankind in order to gain your madda'atillah. Make us your righteous servant that followed your commands and neglect the sinful act. Please forgive us for our wrongdoing. Ya Munzil al-Barakat, bestow peace to our beloved country Malaysia. Preserve us from any threat and disaster, neither man-made nor natural disaster. And to you, Ya Allah, we ask for security and prosperity upon us, our leaders and our country. Bestow patience in us in order to face the challenges from you. Please accept our deeds and please reward us accordingly. ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Salutations I bid to Mr. Muhammad Hanafi, Muhammad Asdi, who is our speaker for today, representatives from the Sabah Education Department, representatives from district education offices, head of English panels, English teachers, ladies and gentlemen. We will now present to you what magic is all about. Focus on the screen and behold, it's magic time. This is the program we're bringing forth to you, and we hope that the information shared today will help all of our viewers gain knowledge and heighten their skills as educators. For your information, an attendance link will be given in the comment section at the end of the session. Your attendance will also be recorded in the SPL KPM platform. So, let's begin our webinar for today. And allow me some time to introduce our speaker for today. Mr. Muhammad Hanafi Muhammad Asdi, welcome to our webinar. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. Can't wait to start the webinar.
That's
you.
perfect. Great energy there. And please allow me the honor of sharing a little bit about your biodata to the viewers tuning in today. As you can see, Encik Muhammad Hanafi Muhammad Asdi graduated from University Science Malaysia with a bachelor's degree in TESOL. He has been an English teacher at SMKA Agama Tunside with 13 years of experience in the field, and he is now currently serving as the head of languages department at his current school. Mr. Hanafi, I don't want to keep our viewers waiting any longer. I'm sure they are very eager to hear about what you plan on sharing with us today, which is an interesting strategy called Speak on Point. From what I understand, it is catered specifically to enhance student performance in the upcoming SPM speaking paper. Mr. Hanafi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Daphne. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good day I bid to everyone present on this online platform. In this talk, as the title suggests, Speak on Point, I will specifically talk about SPM 1119/3, which is the speaking paper. Disclaimer, I'm not an expert in this paper. I'm just like regular teachers like you, like most of you watching today. I'm always looking for ways to improve on my students' speaking skills, especially during the upcoming exam. So basically, whatever I'm sharing is simply methods, techniques I have collected from different sources. I have so many friends and colleagues talking about different techniques, so I've selected some of them to be shared with you all, so that I hope that some of the techniques and methods that I will share will benefit you, especially those who are clueless on how to help the students, especially in terms of techniques or methods to help even the weaker students. Okay. So if you're a teacher listening to this, I hope that this talk can provide some insights or some guidance in the speaking techniques for your students. I also hope that the session will inspire more speaking activities, uh, especially during the classrooms, because I believe that whatever techniques that we come up with, it has to be consistently exposed to the students, and it has to be a practice from as early as possible, from as early as even from one. So, in this session, we will cover number one, the most common problems faced by our students during the speaking test. I will talk about some of the problems as we go along, and at the same time, I will also uh, talk about the assessment scales and what are expected of our students in terms of the skills and the techniques. And then at the same time, I will talk about the techniques and the methods for specific parts in the speaking test to help the students. And lastly, we will open the session for Q&A. Let's first talk about the common problems among the students when it comes to speaking. So let's imagine you are sitting as an interlocutor or assessor during the speaking test. What do you think is the most common problem? So I found out that uh, there are certain individual reasons, like the candidates during the speaking test, they refuse to talk. This is because of the fear and anxiety during the exam, because when it comes to speaking, they are really scared, and because of this fear and anxiety, they refuse to talk. I think it rings some bells, right? Meaning it rings true up until today that speaking has always been uh, challenges among the students. So imagine they have to speak in front of the teachers and also in the real setting of an exam. It might be quite overwhelming to certain students. So even worse, we have heard a lot of cases where students skip the speaking test only to go to the exam on the next day. Okay, that means they are so scared that they even skip the speaking paper. So like we all know that when the students are absent in one of the papers, we they will not be able to get their English marks. Okay, so another reason is another problem that the students have is the lack of vocabulary, right? So this happens because uh, they do not have a lot of they don't do a lot of reading, probably. They are not exposed to uh, the situation where they have to use their vocabulary. So it's not they're willing to talk. Okay, they're willing to talk, but because they lack the ability to produce the sentences and express ideas, so that is why that is also another common problem among the students. We have heard of students who said they know what they want to say, but they just couldn't find the right words to express the ideas. I think a lot of teachers have heard of this problem among their students as well. Third common problem is the students, they are willing to talk, they have the vocabulary, or even the advanced vocabulary. However, they are not able to, you know, approach the speaking test questions properly because they lack of the right techniques. Okay, they have the ideas, but they are not able to follow the right the right way of answering the question. For example, during discussion, they're not even discussing. Okay, they have given six different points, and they're supposed to do some discussion and interaction, but all they do is simply presenting as if they are presenting individually. So this is not the right technique. And of course, the last problem among the student is, even though they have the willingness to speak, they have the vocabulary, they know the techniques, but they do not practice the techniques during the real exam. This is due to the lack of practice, or maybe uh, they have not been practicing the right techniques. Only before the real exam they have been exposed to the technique. So I think this might be some of the problems. The teacher may have given all everything right before the exam, but they have not been they will not they wouldn't be able they wouldn't able they are not able to follow the right technique because of the lack of practice. So what about your students level? Okay, so for me, most of my students in my school, I would say, because I'm from uh, my school is considered as a rural area. Okay, um, sekolah luar bandar, right? So most of my students, even though they are not from the they're not from the cities. Okay, they managed to fall into the category of B1, B2, and some even got C1. However, surprisingly, some of my students, a small number of my students, they fall under the category of A2. So this is what we want to avoid. For me, I personally don't think that a Form 5 students should fall into these two categories, because A1 and A2 level are considered as basic user. What about your students? Which which level do you think your students fall into? Right. So if they can achieve 20 marks and above for uh, speaking test, that means they are already a proficient user. So this is what we want to aim for our speaking test. Even if they fall under the category of B2, is already good enough. You know. All right. Let's talk about the OSP, overall spoken performance. Okay. Basically, for overall spoken performance, we look at three different things. Number one, can your students understand the questions? Okay. Number two, can your students maintain the interaction? So when you talk about interaction, this is only possible in part three. So that means in order for them to reach the higher marks, the score of 5 or 6, they have to be able to maintain and develop the interaction. So that is why part three plays a very important role to uh, to give good marks to the students. Okay, besides understanding the questions, besides maintaining the interaction, the third element that we want to look at under spoken performance is whether or not the we have given a lot of support. We have to look at the amount of support that we give to the candidate. Okay, if there's a lot of support given, that means they cannot be in the highest scores. But uh, if the candidate requires very little support, very little prompting, that means they can be in a higher score for overall spoken performance. Okay, so I want to highlight once again that most of the time, a score of 5 and a score of 6 can be achieved in part 3, which is the discussion based on a mind map to negotiate towards an outcome, and also the extension question. So this is why part 3 is very important. No matter how hard it is, we have to teach the students to be able to answer part 3, especially the mind map, the discussion using the mind map. I assure you, if the technique is right, if the preparation is enough, even the weak students will be able to provide good responses for part 3. Okay, let's look at the next uh, band score. For a score of 3, it can be achieved in part 3 as well. If you look at the one that I highlighted, score of 3 can maintain the interaction by asking and responding to questions and suggestions on family matters in a simple and direct way. That means we pay attention to the word interaction. Interaction starts in part 3, where they have to discuss with their partner. So no matter how weak the student is, if we follow the right technique, if we can train them so that they can use the basic words, to explain the answer, they should be able to reach at least a score of 3 for overall spoken performance. Right? Okay, so I think the rubric to maintain the interaction by asking and responding to the partner during the discussion can only be achieved during the discussion part. Okay, so I think everyone, no matter how weak they are, they deserve to reach at least a score of 3. Right? I will show you the technique later. So we will go from there. All right, this is the other aspects of the speaking assessments. We have grammar, vocabulary, and communicative competence. Okay, under grammar, we look at 3 different elements. Number one, the accuracy of the grammar. Okay. Number 2, we look at the structures. Okay, the grammatical structures, and then we look at the simple, whether the candidate is able to use simple, compound, or complex structures. And number 3, we look at how the candidates organize the ideas by using cohesive devices. Okay, under vocabulary, for part 2, okay, if we look at part 2, on the uh, for a score of 3, right? Okay, part 2, if we look at under vocabulary, a score of 3 can use a range of appropriate vocabulary to talk about everyday situations and familiar topics, can convey relevant meaning but may have errors in vocabulary choice. So this is talking about part 2. In order for a candidate to reach a score of 5 under vocabulary, again, if you look at the score of 5, the word mentioned can use a wide range of appropriate vocabulary to give and exchange views. Again, this is actually talking about part 3. An exchange of views means they have to interact with their partner. Okay, so basically, to get higher marks for vocabulary, the candidate should be able to exchange views, meaning they have to interact with their partner in part 3. Again, we're talking about a part 3 question. And finally, the communicative competence. Okay, if you look at a score of 5, right, starting from a score of 5 and 6, negotiate towards an outcome. Okay, meaning to say that they have to come to a decision after they have done the discussion in part 3. They need to negotiate to an outcome by reaching to a decision. So that means it is again a part 3 question. So basically, if we look at all the assessment scales, the higher bands, the higher scores, they all focused on part 2 and part 3, right? So I'm not talking about a score of 3 because that's where most of our students are. We're talking about a higher band, probably a 4 or 5, and if the students are a lot better, they can even reach a 6, a score of 6. So we are aiming to prepare our students to get to higher bands, which is a score of 3 and above, right? Okay, so these are the techniques that I use to help my students. Actually, on the first year, when the CFR speaking test was first introduced, I was in a complete mess, to be honest. I tried everything to help my students. I tried to prepare my students with a lot of topics, and I just found that it was quite frustrating during the first year. That was the time when I started looking for the right techniques, and I've searched everywhere, and I found some very useful techniques from friends and also colleagues during the seminar and also during our meeting and sharing. So I'm going to give credits to all my friends and colleagues, or even my mentors. Yeah, they are my colleagues, and I regard them as my mentors as well. So these are some of the things that I did, and that it has have improved a lot of my students. Okay, so let's talk about some basic support to help our students produce good speech. So, what are the building blocks? What are the basic, fundamental um, building blocks that we have to provide our students? Okay, this. Okay, so I ask you one question. Why do you think that some students cannot speak properly, and worse, some cannot even speak at all? Okay, so think of building sentences and giving responses as building a house. Students who lack these elements, right, they do not have the basic building blocks to even speak a sentence properly. However, I think that students with outstanding vocabulary, they can use synonyms, idioms, right, a wider range of cohesive devices, and they also have the ability to combine sentences with various types of conjunctions. And I believe that with a lot of practice, they can they can put all of these blocks together. They can build not only houses, they can even build skyscrapers. What do I mean by this? Let's talk about vocabulary. So this, um, I have to give credit to Mr. Anwar, my mentor, because I have attended countless of his talk, and he has inspired me with a lot of ideas. Okay, so this is actually, this is originally coming from him. To improve vocabulary, it doesn't matter whether you are talking about listening, talking about writing, or speaking. To improve vocabulary in general, okay, um, the students, we can advise the students to use synonyms, idioms, derivatives, and phrasal verbs. Okay, what do I mean by this? Okay, so the students have to make a list of words. Okay, maybe they, even better if you ask them to provide a vocabulary book. Okay, so whatever lessons that you teach with students from the very beginning of the year, okay, make it as a habit among the students to list down words related to the lessons in class. Okay, besides the vocabulary section in the textbook, right? Beside the practice that we did in the textbook, um, make it as a habit for students to list down words. Uh, okay, using synonyms in their speech is a great way to start, right? They can make a list of idioms and colloquialisms so that they can practice and freely use all of these words in their speech, not only in their speech but also in their writing. Listing down derivatives may provide helpful as well, because they can teach we can teach the students the differences of meaning for a particular words and its derivatives. Okay, I noticed that students have this problem of making a mistake of writing a word in a different class. For example, the word success, right? uh, the students will make a mistake like this: I want to success. I think this is because they do not know the derivatives of the word or the different class of the words. So by making it as a habit to list down all of the words and their derivatives, it will help solve the problem. And of course, they have to write down the meaning as well. Okay. Um, Next, learning the different meanings of a verb and its phrasal verbs can also help students improve their vocabulary. Okay, and a lot of course, this has to, besides lessons in class, they also have to do a lot of reading, right? So, for me, good students who can understand new words from the extensive reading without actually having to use dictionaries, this is what this is the kind of students who will be able to perform in their speaking test, because they have a lot of vocabulary that they can use. They don't even have to refer to dictionaries, because once they have very good reading habits, they will be able to develop their vocabulary very well. So this can in turn they improve their speaking as well. Okay, next one. Okay, so these are Besides having good vocabulary, so the students should also be able to organize the ideas, their opinions, okay, or uh, even to start and to end their speech, they have to be able to use a variety of cohesive device. This can be done during their individual presentation and also discussions. It is very important to teach them to make sure to teach them the cohesive device that so that they are able to use the cohesive devices consistently and to give a smooth flow of the discussion and presentation. So the usage of cohesive devices uh, is important because it will give them marks under grammar. Okay, so there are a lot more examples of cohesive devices, and this online note is the one that I got from Mr. Mohana, which is a teacher from Ulu Kinta Perak, and I found his blog englishvibes.blogspot.com to be very useful, especially for SPM students. So credit to you, Mr. Mohana. Thank you for the notes that you have shared online. So it will be better if the students have a list of cohesive devices and the meaning, and um, it's to have sample the sample of sentences to show the usage of the cohesive devices. So having the list of this will be able to help them in their speaking. Okay, next one. All right. Okay. Besides cohesive devices, it is also very important to teach the students with the correct conjunctions. It is very important that the students know how to use uh, coordinative conjunctions to build their um compound sentences, and subordinative conjunctions to build their complex sentences. Whatever it is, the teachers have to expose the students with the different types of conjunctions so that the students can use them during their presentation. Okay, if you can see here, we have fanboys. Fanboys, there are only 7 coordinating conjunctions. The students should be able to know how to use them effectively to combine sentences together. This is not only useful for their speaking but also their writing. And we also have Webbits. Webbits here, they are acronyms for these conjunctions. I, I think that these are the most commonly used subordinating conjunctions. But in fact, we have at least 50 subordinating conjunctions that we can use to build our complex sentences. So ask the students to find out the list of the subordinating conjunctions so that and do practice in class so that they can be able to use as many uh, conjunctions as possible so that they can produce the different sentence types. And of course, when you talk about conjunctions and sentence types, they are very closely related because if the students are able to use conjunctions to combine sentences together, they also will have the ability to produce simple, compound, complex sentences. So you don't you don't really have to teach them about. I mean, you can teach them independent clause, but I found out that most of my students they don't even have to understand the terms, but they only need to know how we use them because I learned that my students they do not like to uh, listen to complicated terms. So I give them a sample like this, examples of sentences, and I show them how the sentences are connected using the compound and using the conjunctions, and they're already able to produce their own different types of sentences. Okay, So these are the four different types of sentences. It will be good if the students can produce these type of sentences when they discuss, when they present the ideas. These are the ones that the examiners will uh, will look for when they want to award marks, right? Especially under grammar. Okay, so basically, if you refer to online resources, there are so many other ways on how to produce complex sentences. You can look them up in the internet. So this one, again, I took this from Mr. Mohana's blog, and I found it quite useful because I used these notes last year, and a lot of my students managed to produce not only the normal complex sentences, but they're able to use um, the sentences that are complex using the techniques that I've shown here. So thank you again, Mr. Mohana. And of course, when they have been given and exposed to all these elements, the building blocks, they have to do a lot of practice. Just like what I said before, the students may be able to use, express ideas, and to use the right techniques, but because they lack of practice, they are not able to practice the right techniques during the exam. So it is very important that we maximize the participation of the students during the speaking practice. It can be inside the classroom, it can be outside the classroom, build confidence and provide authentic setting for them so that they can practice the language. I don't have the pictures, I don't have the videos because I have the videos, but I don't manage to put it here. I it is a habit in my school that I use the speakers corner, right? Use the speakers corner in the school to provide as many speaking experience for the students, right, outside the classroom. And this way they can, besides building confidence, you also teach them technique so that they can practice the technique. Okay, they will remember the techniques if you provide them with enough experience. So these are some of the activities that I did. But this is not the focus of today's activity because we want to talk about the techniques, right? So let's go to the first method that I want to present to everyone. This is actually again from Mr. Anwar from SMK Bahau. Okay, Negeri Sembilan. So thank you again, Mr. Anwar, for this method. I found this very useful for my students. I was in a complete mess during the first year, but after uh, learning about this method, most of my students managed to follow, and the students have improved their marks. Okay, for part 3, discussion on a mind map. Okay, so this is actually referring to part 2. So there's a typo here. We are referring to part 2, where the students have to present individually based on the given points. Okay, so what they have to do is they have to answer all the questions in the bullets. Okay, give elaboration on the point, answer the questions directly. So this is another problem of the students when it comes to answering the answering the questions individually. We have 4 bullets, right? The students in my school, what happened was they tend to repeat the question presented to them. So this has wasted a lot of time for them, and this is what we have to advise our students, not to repeat the bullet points presented to them. They have to answer the questions directly. And of course, they have to use cohesive devices, the conjunctions to make the sentences, use less common lexics and good grammar. Okay, again, I remind our candidates not to read the question when speaking because it will waste a lot of their time. And when they're given the 20 seconds to think of what they're going to say, they have to. They are not supposed to waste time. They have to think in keywords. I'll explain to you what does it mean by thinking in keywords. Okay, so let's look at sample 1. This is taken from a book, Trial SPM 2023. All right. The question is, talk about a superpower that you wish you had. So this is part two, individual long term. You should say what the superpower is, what you can do with your superpower, the benefits of having this superpower, and if you would be a superhero or a villain, why or why not. So at the end, the student have to provide a reason, at least one reason. Okay, let's see how we use the CAE method. Okay, so C, we start our advise the student to start with a cohesive device first of all, and answer the question straight away. What is the superpower that you would like to have? I would like to have the power to control time, for example. And do not forget to elaborate on the main point. And it will be good if the candidates can provide further elaboration on that point. And then moving on to the next bullet, what you can do with your superpower. Again, remind the students to start the new idea by providing a cohesive device, because this is a new idea. So to make sure that the idea is smooth flowing, they have to provide a cohesive device. Answer the question straight away, give one elaboration, and further elaboration if they can think of uh, further elaboration. The benefits of having this superpower. Okay, talk again. Start with cohesive device, answer the question, and elaborate on the point. Now, in the last bullet, they can start with, in my opinion, and then they should give at least one reason why they want to be a superhero or a supervillain. And of course, end your speech with a bang. As Mr. Mohana said, always end your speech with a bang. You can end with a proverb, right? And with quotes or any expressions that might help explain your point further, that is suitable to the topic. And if your student can provide a sample answer like this, do you think you would place them in a lower band or a higher band? Of course, you will definitely agree with me that you will put them in a higher band, because we have seen the ability of students using, okay, cohesive devices. We have seen the ability of the students to use um, the last common lexis. We have seen the ability of the students elaborating on their answer by providing longer responses, right? And we have good control of grammar and so on. So this is definitely an answer of a higher band student, if you can, if you ask me. Okay, let's look at the next sample on how we can use CAE method. So this question is also a trial question. What is your favorite song? Okay, in the question, in your response, what is the title of the song and the singer? What is the song about? Why do you like the song? And if you think it is good to listen to music every day, why or why not? Again, in the last question, they have to provide at least one reason. So again, we use the formula CAE. Start with a cohesive device, answer the question directly, do not read the question, what is the title of the song, and who is the singer. Elaborate on the point. Okay, we can see the usage of less common lexis here, tranquil. Okay, make it as a habit in classroom, in your lessons, to use these words so often that the students feel that it is a normal word. So they will definitely use the word, so that if you hear them using this word, this is definitely a less common lexis, and we can award the students in a higher band. Okay. Um, Again, the word tranquil is similar to the word good. Peaceful, isn't it? So once the students have a list of synonyms, like what I mentioned before, they shouldn't be able to have any problem uh, providing this kind of answer, right? It may seem to be too far-fetched to some of us, but I tell you, it's not going to be like that when it is already a normal practice among the students. So class practice, consistent practice is very important, so that it is not something new for your students. Like I am quite surprised actually that some of my students managed to use the word tranquility in classrooms, because I remember mentioning about the word once or twice during the classroom. So it's very important to expose them with this kind of vocabulary, and having synonyms in their list will definitely improve the quality of their speech. Okay, besides that, talk about the second bullet. Don't forget to always start with a cohesive device. Remind your students again and again when talking about new points, always start with a cohesive device. I always remind my students because even after telling them so many times, they always forget, you know. So make it as a habit to use cohesive device. Tell them again and again so that they will not lose the marks. Okay, answer the question, elaborate on the point. Answering the third bullet, use the cohesive device. Answer the question directly, elaborate on the point, and give further elaboration if you can. And of course, the last point, in my opinion, and answer the question by providing at least one reason. And with a bang, music is happiness. And don't forget, remind your students to end with a thank you. So again, I ask you, where do you think the student should be placed if they provide answer like this? Is it 3 marks and below, or is it in a higher band? I definitely agree with you if you say that this is in a higher band, right? So all of the words, bolded ones, they are considered as less common lexis, because you can always check in there is this one website called vocabkitchen.com. You can type the word, and the website can tell you whether this word is a C. What is the level of this word? Is it a B1 word, B2 word, C1, or C2 word? So if the words are categorized as C1 and above, I would say that they are less common lexis. And all of these words that are bolded, they are uh, C1 and above. Okay, now let's go to spot method. Okay, spot method is particularly useful for the next part, which is part three. Just now we were talking about part two, uh, individual long term. So now we are talking about part three, discussion based on mind map. So again, I would like to highlight the word discuss. Okay, the word discuss means that there should be interaction taking place between the two candidates. Okay, so what they should do, they should discuss the details of each point. They have to use cohesive devices and conjunctions. And conjunctions will be able to, the usage of conjunctions will help them to provide a variety of sentence types, simple, compound, complex. And they remind them to use less common lexis, the synonyms, the idioms, and good grammar. And of course, a lot of students, the problem is that they don't know when to stop. Okay, because for part three discussion, they're only given 2 minutes to talk about all the 6 points, and then given another 1 minute to come to a decision together, isn't it? But most of the time, the students do not know when to stop. Okay, it means that the moment when they stop, the time is already almost up for the other partner to speak up. So that is not a good strategy. That's the wrong technique. Okay, so always remind your students not to explain too much, that the other partner is not given the chance to speak. Right, right. When they are given the 20 seconds, they have to think in keywords. I will explain later what is the meaning of thinking in keywords. And during the 2 minutes of discussion, they shouldn't come up with any decision yet. Okay, again, like what I said before, do not elaborate too much. Don't, the 20 seconds like that should be enough for one point. And always pass the turn to the partner after every point is explained, elaborated. Do not take 3 points and explain for 1 minute. That is not interaction. That is like individual presentation. Okay. After every 1 point, pass the turn to the partner. Okay. So, what are the most common problem among students? I already told you they do not know when to stop. So, this technique, the spot method, is a perfect method for students, especially those who do not know when to stop. They have to give the turn to their partner. So, if you are a student listening to this, you remember you only have around 20 seconds to talk about one point. Okay. After that, you have to give the turn to your partner. Okay, if you look at here, spot here simply means start, point, opinion, and turn. Okay, by asking and responding to each other, right? As you can see in the boxes here, the turn is when you want to pass the turn to your partner. That's uh, how do you do this? You ask questions to your partner. So when you ask questions, you're actually passing the baton to your partner. It's like giving the turn to your partner to speak for the next point. So this is very important because your partner is going to reply to the question by agreeing with whatever that you talk about. That is already considered as an interaction. And like what I said, interaction uh, in the assessment scales, when you're able to do interaction, you will be placed in a higher band. So that is why it's very important for them to have asking and responding during their discussion. Okay, for even for the weak candidates, we can still train them to use the template by memorizing some of the basic phrases here. And even though they don't have long responses, but they still can add 2 or 3 words from the given phrases here to talk about their opinions. That will be enough. At least they have memorized certain phrases so that they can pass the turn to their partner, and it will become an interaction. Okay, interaction is taking place in their discussion. Okay, so definitely, no matter how weak they are, as long as they can produce short responses, okay, to add 2 or 3 words as in their opinions, okay, that will be good enough already. At least they do not uh, s- become silent. They still have something to speak, or at least they can still provide something for their partner to keep the interaction going, isn't it? All right. So this is what I mean by thinking in keywords. So when giving opinions, think about 3E. I think most of you are very familiar with this already. So just think about the keywords because um, the candidates are not given the chance to write because they are not allowed to bring their pencil or pen or even papers to write anything. That means we do not allow them to prepare a speech in written form, right? So that means they need to have the ability or the skills to think about their answer without actually referring to anything printed or written. So they have to keep in their mind. That's why they have to think in keywords. What does 3E mean? Okay, let's talk about the topic. What is the importance of eating fruits? So the first E is the students can choose to elaborate on the main point. What is the importance of eating fruits? Okay, whatever points are given to them, they can talk about. They can explain a little bit further about the importance of eating fruits. They can elaborate on the importance first. If let's say they do not know how to elaborate, usually weaker candidates, they are not able to elaborate on longer responses, they can still provide examples. Okay, for example, there are many kinds of fruits such as bananas, apples, and oranges. Examples are a lot easier for weaker candidates. So at least they can finish the sentence and give at least one sentence of opinion before they can pass the turn to their partner. So it is already an interaction happening during the discussion. And of course, the next E is the cause and effect. Okay, when you talk about effects, it can be both positive or negative effects. And I introduced the zero here is when we take the if when we take the element out, what will happen? So, for example, what is the positive effect of eating fruits? Eating fruits can boost immune system and gives energy, right? So what about the negative effects? When you eat fruits too much, eating too much fruits can cause diabetes from the excessive sugar intake. So we have the pros and cons of eating fruits, right? So this is another way for students to elaborate on the point. Let's say when they don't have any ideas, they can think about what is the positive and negative effect of something, the topic that they're discussing. And finally, it'll be useful if you can uh, take the element out. For example, what will happen if you don't eat fruits, right? What is the negative impact or what is the positive impact, right? So here the example is not eating fruits can cause the lack of immunity and one is prone to diseases. So it is just a thinking tool for students. So when they prepare their opinions, right? Because here the students should provide at least one opinion when they talk about the point. So when it comes to giving opinions, a lot of students will come and tell you, "Sir, I don't know how to talk about this. I don't know what to say about this." So tell them to use this thinking tool and make it as a habit in your classroom as well to let them think about this. So they will be familiar with the thinking tool and they will be able to practice it in the apply this technique in the actual speaking test. All right. So let's talk about part three, sample one. Why do Malaysians travel locally? So let's look at the sample answers. Okay. Okay. So the question is the answers. Why do Malaysians travel locally? So these are some of the reasons they travel. Malaysians travel locally because of the variety of food in Malaysia, common language, familiar environment, because it is affordable, and there are also many interesting places in Malaysia and as well as the diverse culture that we have here. So these are the reasons. So for the candidates to talk about all the 6 points, they can use the template of spot method. Again, spot method is introduced by Mr. Anwar. So thank you again, Mr. Anwar. Um, we have benefited tremendously from this technique, and the students have able to follow, and they have produced good discussion. Okay, so I think your students will be able to follow this as well, given that you have exposed to them and you make it as a habit for them to use the template. In whatever practice it you have, make sure they have this template and all the useful phrases to be used. And I think with uh, with some amount of preparation, they should be able to perform in the speaking test. Okay, you can start with by asking, shall I start first? Okay, and then when you give the point, like what I said before, cohesive. Every time one point is introduced, there should always be a cohesive device. Okay, so in terms of giving opinion, Malaysians travel locally because of the variety of food. This is because Malaysia is known for its food paradise. Our street food becomes the talk of the town with use of idioms such as nasi lemak, laksa, and cendol. So let's say the students do not have any ideas on how to elaborate on the variety of food, they can simply give examples like this one. So at least they have some ideas, right? So once they are done with this, they can pass the turn to their partner by asking a question. What do you think? And the partner has to give a response to the question first in order for interaction to happen, isn't it? So it remind the candidates to respond, give a response to the question first before the next point is introduced. Okay, however, I think Malaysians travel locally because of the common language. So the blue color here, blue color, uh, here I changed the color into blue because this is to elaborate on the point. Okay, so pass the turn to the partner and then give a response, give another point, and talk about another examples. Okay, another reason is familiar environment. So let's say the students are out of ideas on what to say, they can simply talk about examples of familiar environments in Malaysia. So in Malaysia, we're familiar with its road conditions, the weather, and the time zone, so we don't have any problems adjusting to the environment. So it is a good thinking tool for students to provide more ideas for their discussion. Okay, don't forget to pass the turn to the don't forget to pass the turn to the partner, respond, next point, and then explain and elaborate on the next point. Don't forget to pass the turn again, respond to the partner, give the next point, and then this one I put it in red because okay, we talk about the cause and effect, right? So what happens if we travel outside Malaysia? So we take the element out. We are not traveling in Malaysia. We travel outside Malaysia. What do you think will happen? So here, traveling to other countries, especially in Asian countries, provide almost the same experience and adventure as traveling locally. So this is another way to elaborate on the idea. That's why Malaysians prefer to travel in Malaysia because we also have many interesting places to visit here which provide similar experience when traveling abroad. Okay, don't forget to pass the turn. And finally, the last point, again, it is elaboration for the main point. Don't forget to close the discussion by saying thank you. Um, but when the 2 minutes is up, the interlocutor will usually say thank you, right? So don't worry if the candidates are not able to close the discussion when the interlocutor says thank you. That means that is the closure of your discussion. Okay, let's look at the next sample. The question is, what can we do to protect the environment? So let's look at how we use the formula again. Spot method. Okay, so some of the points here are practice recycling, taking public transport, conserve energy, planting trees, reducing waste, and bringing on shopping bags. Okay, may I start the discussion now? Start the discussion with the question. So, Speaker B says, yes, please. Introduce the first point with a cohesive device. Okay, explain the first point by giving a reason. See, don't forget to pass the turn to the speaker and don't forget to respond. Next, talking about conserving energy. Okay, the student must also use cohesive device. However, then in my opinion, conserving energy, okay, such as saving electricity and reducing fuel consumption. So this is, I put this as green because this is an example of how you can conserve energy. Okay, so the students may not be able to give a reason why we have to conserve energy. Um, they can start by giving examples of what you can do to conserve energy. Pass the turn, then respond. Introduce the third point by using cohesive device, planting trees. Okay, again, why do you have to plant trees? Give a reason so that it can help to create oxygen to breathe and sustain our lives. Pass the turn to the partner and respond and introduce the next point by using cohesive device. Okay, reducing waste can be done to protect environment. So what is the reason? So maybe the candidate has the idea on the reason why it should be done, then they can provide a reason, pass the turn and respond, introduce the next point by cohesive devices. Okay, bringing shopping bags can help protect the environment. Okay, here I put it as a red because we're talking about the effect. What happens if we don't bring our own shopping bags? What will happen if you use our own, if we keep using shopping bags? So this is an element of when we take the element out, right? So the point is bringing our own shopping bags helps to protect environment. What if we don't bring shopping bags? So that's another way of elaborating on the point. So you can say that using shopping bags causes major pollution on Earth since shopping bags of plastics take hundreds of years to decompose. Okay, so that's another way of making the students think on how to elaborate. And then give the turn and respond. Talk about the last point by starting with a cohesive device, practice recycling, and of course, again, I put this in red because we're talking about effect. Okay, so what is the positive effect of practice recycling, right? So again, we can reduce the amount of waste we throw away, and this helps reduce pollutants in our environment. So we're talking about the positive effects, and the candidate can end the speech by saying thank you. All right. So that is the spot method. Um, Moving on to the next part, which is the also we're still talking about part three. Yeah, just now we are talking about part three when the discussion based on the mind map was happening, right? So this one we are talking about how the candidates negotiate towards an outcome. This is when they have to decide on the best point. This will this one previously this discussion should happen within 2 minutes, and this one they have another 1 more minute to decide together on the best point. So this is a formula that I learned from Madam Audrey from SMK Majakir Papar. So thank you, Madam Audrey, for your wonderful ideas. So this has inspired me to create a template for my students so that I can use in my classroom to help them prepare for their speaking activities. Okay, so I'll share with you what I did. It's very simple actually, um, but it can help the students a lot, and it can help them prepare for their decision, the discussion to come to a decision. Okay, so what exactly that we need to do? So the first thing is 1 to 6 means they have to recall at least two best points and one weakest point. So that's why I put the formula as 1 to 6. Okay, the 1 2 refers to the two strongest points that I think uh, the best points among the 6 points given, and six means the weakest point. All right. So what they can do is the candidates can share the ideas and ask a partner first, make their choice based on uh, the points that they have chosen, right? Use cohesive devices and conjunctions. Again, use a variety of sentences. Use less common lexis and good grammar. And remember, don't make a decision on the spot without discussing the options with a partner. So this is usually the problems that I notice among my students during our speaking test. Yeah, they were given they were asked to give to make a decision together, and what did they do was give they simply gave signals to their partner by choosing one point, and they said, "This is our point. This is the best point that we chose." There was no interaction happening. There was no negotiation taking place. So this is what happened to some of my students during the very first year. You know, it was really frustrating to see, but we came back stronger by using this technique. So the students are able to produce better responses, right? Okay, they have to negotiate to an outcome. It means that they shouldn't make a decision on the spot. There should be discussion happening. There should be negotiation happening first. But this is where they have to present and share the ideas with the partner before they decide on one best point. Okay, so let's look at this sample again, the same sample we used just now. Why do Malaysians travel locally? Okay, so while they're presenting while they're doing the discussion, okay, they should already think about 1 to 6, because they don't have time they are not given time to decide together, right? So that means while they're discussing the 6 points, they should be able to have some ideas on the two best points and one weakest point. So when they have this in their mind, they are ready for making the decision together. Okay, it will be a lot difficult for students to come to a decision together without having any ideas or clues on which points to choose from the very beginning. So when they are fully prepared, when they're ready, they are themselves with the points, they should be able to provide good discussion, negotiation. Okay, so for example, the strongest, let's say the candidate A have chosen uh, the interesting places and the variety of food as the two strongest points, 1 and 2. Okay, so these are the reasons that they can use. And they also think this candidate also think that affordable prices is the weakest point. Okay, so when after they have selected 1, 2, and 6, remind them to think of at least one reason why they've selected that particular point as number one, number two, and number 6. This way, when they already talk about the same thing in their discussion, so when they have prepared all of these ideas, um, it will be they will be able to produce a negotiation that comes after that. Okay, so this is the template. Okay, again, what I mean by the template just now, this is the template that I use in my class. Before they come to a decision, I provide my students with this template so that they write their template first. This is the support that I give to my students, especially those who are quite weak. They write their answers first, 1 to 6, and then after they talk about the reasons, then they are ready for the actual discussion. So this should be done. You can do this as uh, activities to prepare the students for their speaking, uh, to arrive to a decision, right? But as the student progresses, as they become better and better, you can remove this template so that they can uh, simply produce your ideas without using any written materials. So this is just some support that we can provide, especially for the weak students, and remind the students to have to what do you call it to have the useful phrases that they can use during the decision making, right? So I can I usually give them this template as well, where it can be given as the outline of discussion for the students. Okay, depending on the choices of the 1 to 6 among the students. Okay, the basic phrases that they can use. Uh, okay, the basic phrases they can use might be different depending on the choices. If they agree, right? If if the point selected by the partner happens to be the point that that is in their list of strong points, they can agree. Okay, and chances are they already have the reasons to provide additional reasons because they have already thought about the reasons beforehand, right? But let's say the partner mentioned point number 6 as the best point. So how the next student, the next candidate, should disagree by giving the reasons why he or she disagrees with the point. So we can see that negotiating is happening among the students. Okay, so let's look at the sample where uh, both of the speakers, both of the students, candidates agree to one another. Okay, so um, you can start with uh, allow me to begin the discussion and then talk about the topic first. To introduce the topic, today we are discussing about the reasons Malaysians travel locally. In my opinion, the main reason on why Malaysians travel locally is there are many interesting places here in Malaysia. Okay, so I I put the color as blue because this is the reason. We don't need to go abroad to experience fascinating places to visit because Malaysia also have equally unique tourism spots to visit. Okay, so again, don't forget to pass the turn to the partner. Remind your students to pass the turn to the partner, and this is where the student, the speaker will make a choice whether to agree or to disagree based on the ideas that they have already thought of beforehand. So let's say the point is similar to uh, his ideas, number one and number two. So the speaker B should agree, okay, by giving at least one reason based on the reason that he or she has thought of before. Okay, so as for me, I agree with you that interesting places found in Malaysia are equally exciting to visit too, because in Malaysia we have some of the most unique places to visit, such as Kundasang in Sabah, Cameron Highlands in Pahang, Batu Caves in Perak, and many more. Okay, so the the next partner can talk about the same point by providing examples. Okay, providing examples to support the previous main point, the previous base idea. They don't have to provide another reason if it's too much for them. They can provide examples, they can talk about the effects, they can take the elements out, what will happen if they the Malaysians travel to other countries, so talk about this, and it's already um, negotiation is already taking place. We can already tell that the students are actually discussing and coming to a decision, right? So after that, do not forget to close the conversation. Okay, I guess we both agree that Malaysians travel locally mainly because of the interesting places found in our country. Thank you for the fruitful and interesting discussion. Let's bring this discussion to a close. And don't forget to say thank you. So again, this all of this is happening in 1 minute. Okay, what about if the candidate disagrees? What would it be like? Okay, let's say candidate A talked about the best point for candidate A happens to be point number 6 for candidate B. So this is when candidate B should disagree. Okay, Okay, so when candidate D disagrees, don't forget to give a reason, at least one reason for disagreeing with candidate A, right? So if you look at here, um, when the student use 1 to 6 formula, they are more ready to disagree and provide the reason. That is actually the purpose uh, of them thinking about 1 to 6, so that they can be more ready to provide at least one reason for agreeing or disagreeing. Okay, for example, here um, it says Speaker A mentioned that the most popular way to protect the environment is to practice recycling because it has been practiced by people from all walks of life. Besides, it is very easy to do it and it is cost free. What about you? Okay, so let's say this is the point number 6 for candidate B. So candidate B will naturally disagree. I disagree with you that the practice of recycling is the most popular way to protect the environment because there are still many people who lack the awareness and do nothing much. And then don't forget to provide another what do you think is the best point. I think that the most popular way to protect the environment is to use public transport because the usage of LRT, trains, and buses can be seen throughout the nation, especially in the cities. Okay, this one, the candidate is giving examples to explain about the main point. This has become a popular choice among the city dwellers. So for candidate A, do not drag the discussion into long discussion. So you simply have to agree with candidate B. Remind your students not to drag the discussion too long because it's only taking place in 1 minute. So just agree by saying, well, you have a point there, and make a decision. I agree with you that taking public transport is the most popular way because by leaving our own car at home, people can avoid being stuck in traffic and can even relax or read on their way to work. Okay, so don't forget to close the conversation and say thank you in the end. Okay, so so we are done with some of the techniques that I use for my students for part 2 and part 3. Let's talk about the art of answering, especially for the last question, which I think is the most challenging ones as compared to all the others, because this is where the question is designed for C1 candidate, whether or not the candidate is able to give responses to complex and unfamiliar topics, right? So this is a extension question that becomes, uh, I would say, nightmares for the teachers. I've heard complaints among the teachers. I've heard well, not complaints, but um, the fear of the teachers about this question because a lot of students couldn't answer, especially the last part. Last year was especially uh, especially challenging for some of the students, right? So I would try to, I would, uh, I would try to make a clone question for extension question. So if you look at this, the pattern of the question, they always come up with these structures. Towards what extent, to what degree, how far do you agree, in what way. So when the students first heard about these structures, they will always um, be what do you call this? They will always be shocked by the structure. They do not know how to start. For most of the students, some good students are able to provide good responses, but for most students, when they are not very familiar with the structures, they tend to panic. Yeah. So this is what I can see. So it's very important that we provide them with the right techniques. Okay. We will never know our students' abilities if we pre-teach them about the structures and um, try to teach them that the question is actually how the question what do you try to teach them that this question is actually not that difficult, right? Okay, what I mean is that we can provide a technique that the students can use so that they can look at it in a simpler way. Okay, what I mean is like this: if we are asked with this kind of questions, we simply ask the students whether they agree or disagree with it. Okay, look at the topic. Okay, for example, towards what extent does the modernization and education sector has transformed the way the students learn today? So when the students look at the question without having the technique to answer, they might probably panic. So if we ask the students to think of it this way, do you agree that modernization in education sector has transformed the way the students learn today? So they have, I think most of the students are able to understand the question. And if they have some points, they are able to provide good responses. right? So you can always ask, do you agree or disagree, based on the topic. Okay, so the students have a choice. Good students can provide both answers, right? I advise my students to provide both answers, to talk about the pros and the cons, to talk about the positive and the negative, because here the question is toward what extent. So it is not only a yes or a no, it can be both, right? So advise my students, if they have ideas, if they have some knowledge about the topic, they can provide a balanced responses, a balanced response where they have both positive and negative. Okay, when they explain on the answer, they can also follow the 3E technique with the thinking cap, where they have to provide a reason, talk about the elaborate on the reason, talk about the examples that they can think of, talk about the effects, whether positive or negative, or even if you remove the element out from the the if you remove the element out, what will happen, what is the effect. Okay, so an example of answer would be like this. Okay, towards what extent does the modernization in education sector has transformed the way the students learn today? So at some extent, I agree that modernization in education sector has transformed the way the students learn today, because the classes can be done online. So this is the reason. They provide one reason first, and this type of learning has become a norm today after the pandemic. So elaborate on the reason. They can provide examples to further explain about the idea. Classes via Google Meet, Zoom, and StreamYard have become so common, especially among university students. So the students might provide some examples here. Without modernization, students will not be able to learn from the comfort of their own home as it is today. So again, this is taking the element out from the topic and see what is the effect. Okay, so they can talk about this as part of their elaboration. Okay. However, I will always advise my students to think otherwise. On the flip side of the coin, what is actually happening? So you can ask the students to talk about the negative point, right? However, I don't think that modernization has transformed the way the students learn today completely. This is because after the pandemic, all schools throughout the nation revert to physical classes. So this is the reason. The students return to their routine of going to school every day for face-to-face learning. So this is another elaboration for the reason. So if the students can provide uh, both perspectives, okay, this is a very good sample of a student who can give a good response. The student is able to show his or her ability to talk about complex and unfamiliar topics, right? So longer responses like this will definitely be in a higher band. Okay, what about this question? Another clone question for speaking test. How far do you agree? Okay, so this is another popular structure, okay, that is used during speaking. How far do you agree that the advancement of technology has changed the way people communicate today? So again, you can ask the students to think about the answer from both perspectives, agree and disagree. Okay, at some extent, I agree that the advancement of technology has changed the way people communicate today, because people from far away can be connected from a lot of online platforms. So this is the reason. Okay, social media such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, as well as WhatsApp and Telegram have become the main platforms for communication. So this is examples given to further elaborate on the idea. Without the advancement of technology, people will not be able to connect with the whole world as it is today. Again, we take the element out and think about the effects of the what will happen if we take the advancement of technology in the equation, right? So it is again can help the students to elaborate on the idea. And good students will be able to provide perspective from both sides. However, I don't think that the advancement of technology has changed the way people communicate today completely. So, what do you mean by this? This is because some people prefer not to use social media and other online platforms. They prefer to communicate with people face to face. So this is like a neutral way of approaching the topic. So we have both sides of the perspectives, which I think is really good. The response of this kind will definitely be placed in a higher band. If I am the interlocutor or assessor, I would definitely be happy to give this response in a higher band, right? So the last thing that I want to talk about is revision. So before the speaking test, after you have done the techniques, after you have implemented all the practices in classroom, after you make it as a habit for the students to use the techniques, after they have done the practices with their partners, and after all everything have been done, it's very important for them to be given revision, especially for topics that we discuss in classrooms, right? The chapters that we learn in textbooks, we have to provide them with additional reading, because this will definitely help them for extension question, and to prepare them for the discussion part as well. Because I believe that the students, besides practicing with their partners, they also need to have some uh, some sources to read from, so that they can prepare with the right vocabulary. So they can look for resources online. Okay, so I would also suggest that whatever discussion questions that you have during the classrooms, compile them, right? That's what I do. It's tiring, of course, but after every chapter, I compile the questions, and I will provide sample answers. So these are the things that I will uh, share with the students. Some of my students, they are in the Telegram group, so whatever resources I have, I will just share them in the Telegram group that we have for the whole Form 5 students. And when they go home, they can just print on their own and have some reading materials for their own revision. I would also advise teachers to look for online resources like what have been shared by Mr. Mohana from englishvibes.blogspot.com. It's very useful, especially for uh, advanced students who want to score a C1 for their speaking test. It's definitely useful. Um, yeah, it's a good read. So you can look them up online. Okay, I think that's all for my sharing. I really hope that the sharing is clear. If you have any questions, you can ask during the question and answer session. So back to you, Daphne.
Okay. Wow. What a great sharing, Hanafi. So I'll be replacing Daphne. So I could say that today's sharing is very beneficial. Why I say this, because you shared a lot, especially tips on how to score in the spoken performance, whereby you gave very detailed rubric to how the teachers or maybe students can get which scores. So if the students want to get 6, they have to get certain specific rubrics, correct? Okay,
Yeah, that's right.
and then also I love that you listed some strategies that the teachers can use with their students, especially the building blocks, very back to basic, and also the CAE methods. So, ladies and gentlemen, people online, so as Hanafi explained earlier, well prepared students can get good marks, especially in part 3. So, the key words here is Expose the students at an early stage. Practice makes perfect. Right, Hanafi?
That's right.
All right. So let's move on to the questions. So while listening to you speak about our topic today, I was wondering during the speaking component, what happens if a student dominates the session and his or her partner has no chance to respond? Will there be a penalty or what would happen?
Okay, that's why I proposed the technique. I mean, I suggested the technique. During the discussion, they always have to pass the turn to their partner. One point should be presented within 20 seconds. After that, they have to pass the turn to their partner. There shouldn't be anyone dominating the discussion, because interaction should be happening by asking and responding. So when one person is dominating, uh, it is more to individual presentation, right? So it definitely will affect the students' marks when they are not discussing. So that's why, just follow the template. Make sure they pass the turn to their partner by asking questions, and the partner has to respond to the question. So to keep the interaction happening between the two of them.
Okay, so that means as a teacher, the teacher must remind the students, remember to give turns to your friends.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
a
yeah.
second scenario came into my mind. So the second scenario is if the partner does not respond or there's no interaction at all, will the students still get marks? For example, like I
Mhm.
gave the question to my partner, but then my partner didn't reply. So what would happen?
Okay. This can happen during exam, no matter how prepared you are, because of
Hmm.
fear, maybe because of anxiety. They already been exposed to the technique, but they just couldn't apply it during the actual situation. So
Yeah.
don't worry. The as long as one partner is ask questions, even though there is no response, just proceed with the presentation. So we will give marks, award marks accordingly, because we also look at the sentences, we look at the opinions, elaboration, and it will not affect the partner's marks, but it will affect the other one who didn't respond, right? So don't worry about it. But what you can do is you can always practice with the partner. If you happen to know your partner earlier before the actual speaking test, always do the practice. Always remind your partner to pass the turn to you, even if the partner does not have any response. I mean, it does not have any elaboration. Just ask questions so that we can keep the interaction going.
Okay. So that means as long as they're speaking, as long as they're communicating, everything is okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay. So thank you, Hanafi. Mr. Hanafi bin Muhammad Asdi, our speaker, for a very exciting sharing on Speak on Point. Without further
Thank you.
ado, as a token of appreciation from Asia in Sabah Education Department, let us watch a video of a mock-up certificate ceremony to our speaker. All right. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Please remember, kindly fill in the feedback form that we posted in the comment section too. Take your time and reflect back on our session today. We need your feedback as it would help us to organize a much more teacher-centered workshop or webinar. So the attendance link will pop up once you have filled in the feedback form. So feedback form first, then the attendance list will pop up. With that, we have come to the end of our workshop for today. Thank you everyone for lending your ears, and hopefully this session brings a great insight to all of you. Please share our link so that many may benefit from it. So before we go off, let's watch a little montage. Do like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Till we meet again in the next session. Adieu and goodbye.